Maharshi Global Press Conferences, 30 April 2003.
This week there is enormous interest in Maharshi's yogic flying program, perhaps because just this week Maharshi University of Management staged its annual yogic flying competition. This competition had extraordinary coverage all over the country and throughout the world. This article, for example, from the Des Moines Register, is a very beautiful article which explains the mechanics of yogic flying as a technique for world peace. The Des Moines Register is the most significant paper here in Iowa, one of the most respected papers in the United States, and has had an opportunity perhaps to learn very deeply about Maharshi's programs to create world peace because of its physical proximity to Maharshi University of Management here in the United States. We might even want to see briefly an example of the television coverage of this yogic flying event that aired throughout the country and indeed all over the world. This clip is courtesy of CBS National Television. I think we should be able to see a moment or two from that now.
Good evening and thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Tiffany O'Donnell.
And I'm Dave Benton. The quest to bring about world peace sends people to new heights in Fairfield this afternoon.
For the first time in 10 years, Maharishi University held a national yogic flying competition drawing people from around the world. CBS 2's Jim Grayway was there and has the story. Jim.
Tiffany and Dave, it is an ancient pursuit that some say is evidence of the mental power we all have. He doesn't exactly fly like Superman, but Michael Corrin is one of the best aviators of his kind. You consider yourself an athlete, or what do you consider yourself?
Never have until today.
Michael and more than a dozen others from across the globe came to Fairfield, hoping to soar to new heights in the first national yogic flying competition in 10 years.
If someone is looking at this for the first time, it's quite unusual and it's very interesting, but if a gymnast was to try to do this, especially the 25-meter hurdle, at the end they would be physically exhausted.
It may look easy, like they're just hopping around on their rear ends, but I can't even get my legs in the right position. Although even if you are flexible enough to sit like this, propelling yourself through the air, they say, isn't something you just do. These flying followers of the Maharishi insist that yogic flying isn't a physical pursuit. It's all in the mind.
Yogic flying is a technique, a mind-body coordination technique that allows the mind to settle down, and then when it settles down to a point of where it's very integrated, one projects a thought, and the thought, because the mind is very powerful, the body fulfills that thought, and one of the thoughts is for the body to lift up and move forward.
There are the hurdles, the long jump, and the high jump, and it's all done in silence, except for the thumping sound on the mattresses, for a purpose much greater than mere competition.
We do meditation and yogic flying twice a day, every day, just to culture the mind and the body, and just brings bliss and happiness.
And the second reason is sort of a spillover effect, is that when large groups of people practice this technology in one place, it's been demonstrated that it reduces collective stress in a society as measured by crime rate, reduced hospital and accident admissions, so it has an effect on society as a whole as well.
Whether you believe the philosophy behind it or not, it is something to see. They actually call this stage 1 of yogic flying. Stage 2 is hovering, and stage 3 is actually soaring through the air, although nobody I talked to today could say for sure that they've ever gotten beyond the first stage. Back to you.
Maharshi, this is just an example of very, very broad coverage that aired throughout the entire world and throughout the United States, showing a tremendous interest that's being generated by a new technology of peace, Maharshi's Vedic science of consciousness. A lot of questions have come up for Maharshi about this, but part of the interest is due to the fact that people are tired of talking about the war. The press is tired of covering protests to the war. Now we have something that the press finds a source of great hope, a scientifically founded technology for peace. This question is from Joanne Gessner, Fairfield correspondent for the Ottumwa Courier and contributing correspondent to the Associated Press in Iowa. Maharshi, at the yogic flying competition last week, the press was surprised that a grandfather, Rod Falk, won 2 events, the dashes and hurdles, against much younger competition. is the success of yogic flying independent of physical conditioning? Or is it dependent on understanding, wisdom, and length of experience with the yogic flying technique?
It's independent of anything on that level when the mind is independent of anything. When the mind is settled in itself, then the mind is total natural law lively. Total liveliness of natural law when the mind is itself. That is cosmic mind. Mind in its self-referral, infinite value of quality and quantity, infinite value. So when the mind is itself, then its thought is propelled by natural law. And thought propelled by total natural law means instant fulfillment of thought. And in this yogic flying, the thought is that I want to fly now. The body immediately lifts up. The body is a physical something, but it lifts up at the desire of the mind when the mind is itself. When the mind is itself, then there is nothing except pure intelligence, and any spur of desire, any desire there is the desire of the total self-referral natural law, which we say from the level of religion, the will of God. So when our mind is on that level of will of God, then whatever mind wills, whatever mind desires, through the will of God, the mind gets it. So this program of yogic flying is just a training of the mind to become used to that level of thinking where thought is promoted by natural law, where the thought is supported by total creative intelligence of natural law. This is the will of God. And on that level, everything is a possibility. Lifting up of the body is not is not something very that one can make up. It's the phenomenon that is seen to be the phenomenon of the physical body, that the physical body lifts up. But it is the act of the mind. In the same way, ordinarily, when a man writes, they say, oh, good handwriting. One sees that the hand is writing. It's so good to see that the hand is writing nicely. But it's the mind that writes. If the mind is settled mind, then the thoughts will be moving the hand in a systematic manner, and it will look to be pleasant. So yogic flying is just a certification of the ability of the mind to think from a level where the mind would take in total support of natural law. And this is the practice that is necessary so that whatever a man thinks, his thought is supported by natural law. Whatever a man is, his thought is supported by natural law. People do wrong things to get something because they think in right doing they will not be able to do that thing. They will not be able to take it. But when the support of nature is available to the mind, this is the training of the mind. And when the boys are given this practice in the schools, about 20% of the whole population always is student age. So 20% of the student age utilizing full total potential of natural law in their thought, speech and action, the whole national consciousness will be coherent, will be evolutionary, behavior will be helpful to everyone. This is what education should be. This is what education should be. This will be developing cosmic potential in the individual awareness, in the individual mind. It's a very great secret of success in life. Very great secret of success in life. Every student should have this education and training. It's not knowledge about it so much, because knowing something will not help. What will help in this case is being. Knowing by being. The mind has to be that on that level where it can spontaneously take in all the support of natural law. This yogic flying is a phenomenon which the galactic universe is motivated into. All the galaxies, huge galaxies, so many suns, moons and all that. But they are all on that level of utilizing total creative potential of natural law, held up in that silence. That is why the yogic theme of action is, yogic theme of action is yogastha kuru karmani. Stationed in a unified field, you perform action. This is yogic action. That's why we say yogic flying, yogic action. That you get hold of the total field of natural law for what you want to do. Desire. Desiring should be upheld by total natural law, and in this way every student, and this will be the fulfillment of the parents' will to educate the boys. Every parent wants his children to be very, very happy, peaceful, successful, always, they don't have to meet with any difficulty in life, no problem. This desire of parents can only be fulfilled by putting the children to practice morning and evening this yogic flying, which is preceded by transcendental meditation. It's a very great joy for us to release this tremendous secret of all possibilities to everyone in the world. And if people, if the education doesn't take it, that's why sometimes they begin to feel angry on governments and all that. But feeling angry will not do any help. The main thing is that now we want to create a group sufficient enough to maintain this harmony in nature. Now we have come to a realization that all the people don't have to do it. A group of 30, 40,000 yogic flyers in the midst of 6 billion people of the world. Only we have to organize for such a group to be permanently available to maintain this coherence in the world, and those individuals who will participate in this, they'll be enlightened individuals, and they will be founders of world peace. They'll be founders of world peace, 30, 40,000 people. Any government can do it. Any government can do it. Any government can do it. And if the governments don't do it, then they'll be bombed, all those missiles are getting ready. Every time missile, get to missile, and get your families and get your people under missiles, or put them to enlightenment and create a world of higher intelligence. Create a world of higher intelligence or be swallowed up by missiles. There is no other choice.
Maharshi, a number of very good questions have come in about your program to create world peace. Perhaps we could just have one follow-up question on your previous response on yogic flying. Maharshi, you have said that yogic flying operates from the same laws that hold the planets and galaxies hanging in space, and that yogic flying is the proof that thoughts are promoted from that same universal level. Now yogic flyers are in the beginning stages of flying, hopping. What will it take for yogic flyers to float in the air, and the second stage, and fly through the air, the third stage, in the same way that planets and galaxies do?
Coherence in world consciousness. It is the lack of coherence in the world consciousness that doesn't allow the flight to be higher. But as the world consciousness is more and more coherent, flights will be any height, any height. Any height means any height. Only limitation comes from the dirty atmosphere around in the collective world consciousness. But it's completely within our reach today. If we have sufficient funds, we can engage these people permanently to maintain coherence in world consciousness.
This question, Maharshi, on the mechanics of world peace. I have a basic question for Maharshi. I do not understand completely the mechanism whereby 30 to 40,000 people meditating in one spot on Earth can influence the thinking and behavior of billions of other people who are thousands of miles away. I know that Maharshi uses the analogy of turning on a light, but in that case I understand light propagates through the electromagnetic field. What is the peaceful influence that gets generated during meditation, and through what field does it propagate?
Consciousness. The field of consciousness. Consciousness. Self-referral consciousness. Unified field of consciousness. Unified field of consciousness has been explored by science. You can have theories of unified field and see that there is a level which is unified level. Unified level. It unifies all differences. Unified all differences. There is order in creation, huh? Sun, moon, galaxy, there's huge amount of variety, but set in an orderly functioning. This order is there. This order is there. And if you understand what order means in the midst of infinite diversity, and if you have heard the word that the universe, our universe, is an expanding universe. It's an expanding universe. It's not a stationary universe. Dr. John Hagelin, explain to them what you say, millions of suns and all that. Explain to this gentleman, he doesn't understand what is that field.
Yes, thank you, Maharshi. Maharshi is alluding to the scientific reality, scientific discovery of unity at the basis of all diversity. Superficially, we see an apparently diversified universe with trillions of galaxies, each with 100 billion suns, all maintained in perfect order through natural law. What modern science and Maharshi's Vedic science both point out is that there are deeper levels of natural law at the atomic level, the nuclear level, subnuclear levels of nature's functioning, which are invisible to the eye, but nevertheless real. Not just real, but more fundamental than the surface laws of nature governing the macroscopic and diversified world around us. So modern science and Maharshi's Vedic science have both uncovered a single, universal, unified field of intelligence at the basis of all the diverse streams of natural law governing the universe at every level. The reporter was correct in drawing an analogy to the electromagnetic field, the field of light. The field of light is an abstract field, an unseen field that can't be tasted, touched, or smelled. And yet an impulse within that field pervades the entire environment. It spreads in all directions at the speed of light or as radio waves, communicating information across vast distances. Modern science has actually gone on to discover that everything in the universe is a field. All the fundamental forces of nature, all the so-called particles of nature, quarks and leptons, electrons, neutrinos, all of these are just localized, these so-called particles are localized expressions of unbounded fields. Through all these fields, abstract, unseen fields, information inevitably propagates, communicates. The unified field of natural law is the field of consciousness, the most fundamental field in nature. The unified field is a purely self-referral field shown at the basis of this chart, purely self-interacting field of nature's intelligence at the basis of all the diverse streams of natural law governing the universe shown on the left of this chart. The right-hand side of this chart shows how, through the process of transcendental meditation, human awareness systematically traverses all of the different levels of natural law, from superficial to profound, from diversified to unified, culminating in the direct experience of the unified field, the field of pure consciousness within. So by stimulating this most basic field of intelligence in nature, we would expect, of course, on the ground of science, that impulse of unity to radiate throughout the entire society. Indeed, the unified field of natural law is beyond the structure of space and time. It, in that sense, is completely unique in that it incorporates mechanisms that are so profoundly non-local that it's not even truly accurate to say that the information propagates through society at the speed of light, but really that this influence of unity and coherence is simultaneously enlivened everywhere. Truly a non-local field effect of consciousness that is expected on the basis of the non-local nature of this fundamental field of intelligence of nature at the basis of mind, at the basis of matter, at the basis of everyone and everything in the universe, according to modern science and Maharshi's Vedic science, which is unique in that it provides the practical technologies of consciousness which allow any individual in the world, really irrespective of age, irrespective of education, irrespective of cultural or religious background, allows every individual to systematically and scientifically experience total natural law, the unified field of all the laws of nature at the source of thought. A field that we have seen just now is a non-local field, the influence of which experience, therefore, is expected to be non-local. We call these field effects of consciousness, also known in the scientific literature as the Maharshi effect, because Maharshi predicted these field effects of consciousness on the basis of his own deep understanding of the Vedic science of consciousness and deep experience of the Vedic science of consciousness. Maharshi made predictions of reducing crime and violence throughout the world on the basis of the group experience, group practice of transcendental meditation, and that prediction has since been confirmed in over 50 published studies, published in the world's foremost peer-reviewed scientific journals that show that indeed the collective experience and collective enlivenment of totality, of unity, of the unified field of consciousness radiates an indomitable influence of positivity and unity throughout the social system, diffusing the acute enmity and negativity that fuels violence and conflict. So Maharshi was referring to a more fundamental field than the reporter's own discussion of electromagnetism, but yet a good analogy. Maharshi was referring to the fundamental field of consciousness, which is basic in nature and even beyond the confines of space and time. It is through this core value of natural law, the root foundation of everyone and everything in the universe, that the influence of unity propagates and enlivens totality and wholeness in the collective consciousness of entire societies.